America is entering its breaking point, and every single metric that matters, crime, debt, mental health, division, collapse of trust, is flashing red at the exact same time. You're not imagining the tension in the air. You're not imagining that people are angrier, more desperate, more unstable. This country is running on fumes. Household debt just hit $17.5 trillion, the highest in U.S. history. Suicide rates just reached a 75-year high. Over 60% of Americans say they can't cover a $1,000 emergency, and nearly 70% believe violence will rise dramatically over the next few years. You can feel it in the grocery store, in traffic, at work, online. Everyone is stretched to their limit, and the systems that were supposed to hold this nation together are failing faster than anyone wants to admit. So before we go any further, let me tell you the truth nobody on TV will say out loud. America isn't just struggling. It's unraveling. And people are ready to snap. You're not broke. You've been robbed by the silent taxation machine. What's actually happening is that your paycheck is being looted in broad daylight, and nobody's coming to stop it. Inflation is no longer just a temporary cost of living spike. It's become an institutional scam, a silent form of taxation that picks your pocket without ever asking for permission. Between 2020 and 2025, the dollar lost nearly 25% of its value. That's 1/4 of your purchasing power gone. Just vanished. And yet your wages? They barely moved. You were promised cost of living adjustments, but all you got was a corporate pat on the head and maybe a pizza party. Rent has doubled in 8 cities since 2019. Car insurance is up 33% year over year. Groceries? The USDA said in August 2025 that a typical family of 4 is now spending over $1,000 a month just to survive. Not thrive, survive. Eggs, once mocked for going up to $5 a dozen, are still floating at record highs in some states due to supply manipulation. But here's what nobody's talking about. Shrinkflation is an even nastier weapon. Companies aren't just charging you more, they're giving you less. A family-sized cereal box from 2020 has lost 2-3 ounces in 2025, but it costs 40% more. And they legally don't have to notify you of that change. You're buying the illusion of value, and they're selling you air. Meanwhile, corporate profits have exploded. The S&P 500 hit new highs not because the economy is strong, but because corporations are charging you more for less and calling it efficiency. And the worst part? The Fed acts like this is all some mysterious weather event, as if 0% interest rates for a decade and printing $8 trillion wouldn't eventually light this economy on fire. You're not going crazy. You're just living through a multi-front economic war where every institution pretends they aren't the ones squeezing you, and people are starting to snap. Because there's only so many times you can get scammed by your grocery store, your landlord, your insurance company, and your government before you stop calling it inflation and start calling it what it really is: economic warfare. Let's talk about the American healthcare system. Or more accurately, the legalized extortion network that dresses up in lab coats and bills you 6 months later. This isn't about poor bedside manner or long wait times anymore. It's about how the system is designed to intentionally confuse, bankrupt, and bleed the average person dry. You could walk into an ER today with a broken wrist and walk out with a $14,000 bill, and that's after insurance. A 2024 report from the Kaiser Family Foundation showed that over 43% of American adults are in medical debt, not because they're irresponsible, but because the system is set up to profit from their pain. Hospital billing departments now operate like debt collection agencies, and private equity owns a growing number of emergency rooms and urgent care chains. They don't care if you get better. They care about asset stripping you on the back end. And here's something few people know. Those surprise bills, they're not random. There's an algorithm behind them. It's called upcoding, where software automatically selects the highest possible billing code for your visit, even if you didn't receive that level of care. It's fraud, but it's legal. They call it maximizing reimbursement. And the deeper rabbit hole? Your hospital might charge you $68 for a Tylenol because that price includes overhead, which includes things like CEO bonuses, luxury corporate retreats, and lobbying fees. This is not a healthcare system. It's a mafia in scrubs. Even the non-profit hospitals, the ones you think are better, are hoarding billions in tax-free profits while suing low-income patients for pennies. 1 in 5 hospitals in America is owned by a private equity firm that doesn't even operate in medicine. They're in it for the return. And with AI now replacing billing staff, the denials are faster, the appeals harder, and the victims more exhausted than ever. And people are cracking. They're skipping meds, canceling treatments, or worse, turning to crowdfunding just to survive. A GoFundMe medical campaign is launched every 2 minutes in this country, and the system has the audacity to call that freedom. If you think Americans are fine with this, you haven't seen the fury boiling under the surface. Because they're not sick of being sick, they're sick of being used. Every day, more Americans are quietly realizing that they no longer believe in the system. Not the media, not the government, not the banks, not the voting process, not even their neighbors. This isn't some right-wing or left-wing conspiracy. This is a bipartisan psychological fracture that you can feel in your bones. In a recent Gallup poll, trust in the federal government hit an all-time low of 16%. That's lower than at the height of Watergate or the 2008 crash. Think about that. 2 out of every 3 Americans don't trust any major institution to tell them the truth. And it's not just DC. It's local news. It's public schools. It's your HOA. It's your company's HR department. Even the CDC and FDA, once seen as gold standard agencies, now have less credibility than influencers on TikTok. And that's not an exaggeration. A 2025 Pew Research study found that 34% of Gen Z respondents said they trust independent creators more than government agencies when it comes to science. This is a cultural collapse, and it's not abstract. It shows up in every conversation. You hear it in parents pulling their kids from schools because of curriculum changes they weren't consulted on. You see it in the 18 million Americans who've stopped voting since 2020. You see it in the explosion of gated communities, homeschooling, private security firms, and off-grid movements. People aren't waiting for collapse, they're preemptively withdrawing. And what replaces trust? Surveillance, panic, censorship. We now live in a country where speaking your mind at work can get you fired, but faking allegiance to a lie gets you promoted. Where public discourse is no longer a debate, but a minefield. The American experiment was always built on a fragile pact of mutual trust, that if you paid your dues, played by the rules, and participated, the system would at least try to be fair. That contract is void, and deep down, most people know it. So what happens next? When belief disappears, so does cooperation. And when people stop cooperating, they stop tolerating. And when they stop tolerating, they start snapping. Not on TV, not in headlines, but behind the scenes, where it counts most. Blue-collar America has been systematically gutted, and nobody cared until it was too late. Here's a hard truth that nobody on CNBC wants to talk about. America doesn't make things anymore, or at least, not where it used to. From 1994 to 2024, the U.S. lost over 91,000 manufacturing plants. That's not a typo. That's one factory every day for 30 years. The so-called Rust Belt isn't just rusty, it's decayed. Cities like Youngstown, Gary, and Flint were once economic engines. Now they're grave sites of American industry, lined with crumbling smokestacks and fentanyl clinics. And what replaced them? Tech campuses on the coasts and automated warehouses in flyover states that pay 16-hour with no union, no pension, and a robot breathing down your neck. You want to know why so many people are angry? Because their dignity was shipped to China, and all they got in return was an app that tracks their bathroom breaks. It's not just nostalgia, it's economic reality. In 1980, over 20% of American jobs were in manufacturing. In 2025, it's under 8%. Meanwhile, service sector, jobs exploded. But we're not talking about engineering or consulting. We're talking about serving coffee, delivering takeout, driving Ubers, packing boxes. The working class didn't disappear. They just got rebranded as gig workers and then algorithmically managed into submission. There's no ladder anymore, just a hamster wheel. And all this happened while politicians stood at podiums promising retraining and reskilling. They threw buzzwords at a generation that built this country with their hands and told them to go code. And now? Now the broken towns they left behind are turning bitter. Crime is up. Suicides are up. Male life expectancy is down for the first time in modern history. And behind every boarded-up diner or shuttered steel mill is a man who worked 40 years, played by the rules, and got nothing back. And they're not just angry. They're done. Done voting. Done hoping. Done pretending the system cares. When people lose their sense of usefulness, they stop caring about the rules. And when enough of them snap, the fallout doesn't look like a protest. It looks like collapse. The education system has been hijacked, and it's creating the most anxious generation in history. If you want to understand why teenagers look like they've aged 10 years by the time they hit 17, look no further than the modern American education system, a twisted mix of indoctrination, test prep, surveillance, and social media rot. Let's get this straight. This isn't school. It's a pressure cooker where kids are expected to perform like adults, obey like soldiers, and socialize through screens. And the damage is everywhere. By 2025, over 42% of high schoolers report persistent feelings of sadness or hopelessness. That's nearly double what it was in 2009. But here's the part nobody wants to touch. This isn't just a mental health crisis. It's a systemic breakdown. School is no longer about critical thinking or empowerment. It's about control and conformity. Cameras in classrooms, AI-powered plagiarism detectors, behavioral algorithms. Students are tracked, scored, flagged, not taught. And instead of real-world skills like finance, negotiation, or trades, they're fed sanitized curriculum designed to avoid lawsuits and preserve donor support. Forget history. What they get is a timeline of half-truths. Forget economics. They get inflation graphs without being told that the Fed owns the money printer. And while this is happening, college has become a debt sentence. The average American student now graduates with $38,000 in federal loans for a degree that might not even guarantee a job because HR algorithms screen resumes before a human ever sees them. And blue-collar paths? Public schools barely mention them. Shop class is extinct. Vocational programs are underfunded. Kids are told success only comes with a BA and a 4.0, even if the plumber down the street is making 6 figures cash. This new generation is over-medicated, overstimulated, and underprepared. Social media was supposed to connect them. Instead, it shattered their attention spans, hijacked their dopamine, and convinced them they're never good enough. And when they finally crack, the system prescribes pills, not solutions. The result is a generation that's brilliant, broken, and barely hanging on. And if you think this level of pressure can go on forever, just ask any parent how many hours a week their kid sleeps. The answer will chill you. Something's got to give. And it's probably going to be the kids. AI isn't the future anymore. It's the monster that's already eating jobs, art, and identity. Most people are still talking about AI like it's a tool, a calculator, a robot butler. But by the time they wake up, it'll already be too late. Because this thing isn't just replacing labor, it's replacing humanness. And nobody voted for it. In just 3 years, from 2022 to 2025, AI wiped out millions of white-collar jobs. Content moderators, copywriters, data analysts, paralegals, support reps, gone. Not laid off, replaced. Because it turns out most corporate tasks are just repetitive pattern matching. And AI is better at that than you are, and cheaper. And it doesn't take sick days. But it's not just about jobs. AI is infiltrating culture now. Music labels are signing AI artists. Studios are using AI to write scripts. Major news outlets are publishing AI-generated articles. Hollywood is even scanning actors' faces and voices to use them in perpetuity, paying them once, then owning their image forever. That's not progress. That's erasure. And the real kicker? AI can mimic your voice now, your writing style, your face, your identity. All it takes is a few samples. So, what happens when a fake version of you says something you never said? And the internet believes it? Meanwhile, we're being told to learn to prompt, as if feeding commands into a machine that will soon outthink us is a survival plan. Even the people who built AI are sounding alarms. Elon Musk called it a civilizational risk. OpenAI's founders warned of AI systems that can evade human control. And yet big tech is accelerating, because whoever builds the best AI controls the new world. Forget oil, forget gold. The new war is for cognition, and most of us are unarmed. This isn't about innovation, it's about power consolidation. A handful of unelected tech companies now control the most advanced intelligence tools on Earth. And they're not building them to empower you, they're building them to replace you. And when people realize they've been gamified, digitized, and discarded, not in 2050, but right now, the backlash won't be polite. It'll be existential. Because AI didn't just take our jobs, it took our value. Small towns are being hollowed out, and nobody's sending help. You want to see what slow motion collapse looks like? Don't go to a big city. Head into the heartland. Drive through rural America and look closely. The gas stations are half abandoned. The grocery stores have been replaced by Dollar Generals. The schools are understaffed. The factories are gone. The downtown is boarded up. And the hospital? If it's even still there, it's probably bankrupt or running skeleton crews. This isn't a coincidence. This is policy failure by design. Since 2010, over 180 rural hospitals have shut down in the US, and more than 600 are currently at risk. Why? Because healthcare is no longer about community access. It's about profit zones. And if your ZIP code doesn't generate a high enough ROI, you don't get care, you get a 2-hour drive and a prayer. The jobs dried up decades ago, replaced with meth, fentanyl, and minimum wage promises. Wages haven't kept pace with inflation anywhere, but in rural counties, they're even worse. Some towns haven't had a single new housing development in 30 years. Not because people aren't trying to move, but because nobody's investing. Broadband is a joke. Public transport doesn't exist. And banks? They fled. Over 1,600 rural bank branches closed between 2012 and 2022, leaving working-class families to rely on predatory lenders and payday sharks. The same institutions that abandoned these communities now treat them like political liabilities or data points. When these forgotten Americans cry out for help, they get blamed for their own suffering. Just move. Just learn to code. Just leave your entire life behind. The elite scoff, while millionaires sip oat milk lattes in cities built on the backs of those small-town factories. The sense of abandonment has metastasized into rage. You feel it in the town halls. You hear it in the bars. People who once believed in the flag, the church, and the law are now convinced they were sold a lie. And they're not wrong. The social contract was torn up and used for kindling. And now these towns aren't asking politely anymore. They're locking their doors, buying ammo, homeschooling their kids, and preparing for a collapse they already feel like they're living through. You think these people are just bitter? No, they're mourning a country that left them behind. The border is broken, and both sides are lying about it. This one's radioactive, but it's not going away. And if you actually talk to people who live near the US-Mexico border, you'll hear the same thing over and over again. The system is broken. And nobody in Washington is telling the full truth. It's not just about immigration numbers or political slogans. It's about collapse at scale. In fiscal year 2024, there were over 2.4 million migrant encounters at the southern border. A record. And no, that doesn't include the unknown number of gotaways. Migrants who entered without being stopped, counted, or processed. DHS. Insiders estimate that number may have crossed 1 million in 2023 alone. And here's the kicker. Both parties are using the crisis to score points, not solve it. Democrats talk about humanitarian aid while quietly funding contracts to house migrants in crumbling hotels with zero oversight. Republicans scream about walls while private contractors rake in billions building surveillance towers and drone systems that don't stop anyone. They just record the collapse in HD. Meanwhile, cities like El Paso, Tucson, and San Diego are buckling. New York has declared a migrant emergency. Chicago is converting park buildings and police stations into makeshift shelters. And in smaller towns, locals are watching busloads of strangers arrive, without warning, without resources, without a plan. This isn't about skin color. It's about systems. The asylum system is overwhelmed. ICE is understaffed. The cartels are running logistics more efficiently than the US government. Entire sectors of the economy, agriculture, meatpacking, construction, are addicted to undocumented labor while pretending otherwise. It's a game, a deadly one. And real people, migrants and citizens, are the ones being crushed. But the most dangerous part isn't the influx. It's the loss of trust. Border agents are quitting in droves. Locals feel abandoned. And the migrants themselves? They're being used as pawns, dropped into unfamiliar cities with false promises and no safety net. And when services collapse under the weight, guess who gets blamed? The poor, the working class, the neighbors. The tension is boiling, and when law and order starts to slip, when vigilante patrols and local militias start filling the gaps, we won't be talking about policy anymore. We'll be talking about the point of no return. Here's the most twisted part of everything. It's not just that things are falling apart. It's that we were trained to blame ourselves while it happens. The American dream used to mean something real. Work hard, stay honest, and you'll make it. But now, it's a weapon. A marketing campaign designed to keep you hustling while the finish line gets moved every year. And people are finally realizing it. That's why everything feels off. Why millions of people lie awake at night feeling like failures when they've done nothing wrong. Because the lie is collapsing, and we're still stuck chasing it. In 1971, the median home price was $25,200, about 3.3 times the average income. In 2025, the median home is now over $430,000, nearly 8 times the average salary. And that doesn't even factor in interest rates, property taxes, insurance hikes, or hidden HOA fees. You can't just buy a house anymore. You need 2 incomes, perfect credit, and a tolerance for lifelong debt. And renting? That's not safe either. Rent inflation hit 6.8% year over year, and in many cities, you now need to earn 35 hours to afford a 1-bedroom without being rent-burdened. But don't worry. Corporate landlords like Blackstone are buying up everything anyway, so soon you won't have the option to buy. And while you're drowning, Instagram shoves luxury condos, $500 skincare routines, and 7-figure influencers down your throat. Finance bros tell you to grind harder. Self-help gurus say your mindset is the problem. But let's be real. No amount of manifesting is going to lower the price of gas, health insurance, or daycare. The system isn't broken. It was built this way, to extract as much value from you as possible while blaming you for the pain. People are waking up with zero safety net, with $97,000 in debt in their mid-30s, working 2 jobs and still unable to afford a dentist. And they're wondering what they did wrong. The answer? Nothing. The game was rigged. And once enough people stop internalizing the guilt and start externalizing the rage, that's when it breaks. That's when this illusion called the dream becomes something else entirely. A powder keg. And it's already leaking gas. The middle class is gone, and no one's coming to save it. This is the end game. This is the big one. Everything you've read, the inflation, the job erosion, the housing crisis, the loss of trust, it all converges here. Because there is no country without a middle class. And America's middle class? It's vanishing. In 1970, the middle class made up 61% of U.S. households. As of 2025, that number has dropped to 42% and falling fast. You either make it into the top 10% or you start sliding toward instability, insecurity, and eventual precarity. There's no cushion anymore. There's the rich, there's the struggling, and the people in between are being squeezed out of existence. But here's what's worse. The ones who are slipping don't even know it yet, because the metrics are outdated. The government still claims low unemployment, but that's because millions are working gig jobs with no benefits, no security, and zero legal protections. The average American household now carries $104,000 in debt. Nearly 70% of Americans can't cover a $1,000 emergency without going into more debt. And yet we're told the economy is resilient. What they mean is that the stock market is still green. They mean corporate profits are still high. They mean you haven't rioted yet. Meanwhile, billionaires have doubled their wealth since 2020. Corporate buybacks are breaking records. And politicians? They're too busy insider trading to care. We now live in a country where a full-time job no longer guarantees health care, where public school teachers need GoFundMe pages to buy supplies, and where people are working until they die because retirement is a luxury only the elite can afford. And what does the government do? Raise the Social Security age, delay Medicare coverage, push financial literacy campaigns, while handing trillions to defense contractors and banks. The American middle class was once the envy of the world. Now it's a myth, kept alive only through nostalgia and denial. And the worst part? No one in power is even trying to fix it. They've accepted the two-tiered system. They like it. It's profitable. But the people at the bottom, they've stopped believing. They've stopped waiting. They're watching the lights flicker, the rent spike, the jobs vanish. And they know the cavalry isn't coming. Because there is no cavalry. And that right there, that's when people snap. So now you've seen it. Not speculation, not theory, reality. The slow unraveling of a country we were told would never break. And yet, here we are. Food costs more, wages buy less, trust is gone, and every system that was supposed to protect you has quietly turned its back. You were promised opportunity and handed survival. You were told to stay calm while everything around you crumbles. But here's the part they didn't expect. You're not alone. Millions of people are feeling this same pressure, the same dread when the bills hit, the same exhaustion from fighting battles you never signed up for. And now, people aren't just fed up, they're waking up. And once that happens, once people stop believing in the illusion, the fallout doesn't come slow. It comes all at once. So what worries you the most? Which part of this did you feel in your gut? Drop it in the comments, because the more we say it out loud, the harder it is for them to pretend it's not real. Thank you for watching. Stay aware. Stay sharp. Because the next chapter of this collapse is already being written.